Okay, what pace should you run your various runs at? Now, if you put any sort of structure into your training, your week will look, it's not difficult, it's not complex, it's quite a simple formula in order to, over the weeks, over the months, in order to get you in race preparation shape. And that looks a little bit like, for me, and for most people, Wednesday or midweek interval session, which helps you increase your speed, increase your lactate threshold. We'll get onto that in a second. Weekend long run, which will help you build your stamina, build your endurance, and together those two complement each other really well. And the way that you get ready for those two sessions during the week, which will provide most of your improvement, most of your super compensation, is recovery runs and easy runs in between. So essentially, over a 10-week focused training schedule, 10 interval sessions, 10 long runs. Not complicated, but that's surrounded by a bunch of recovery runs and easy runs, which are pretty much the same thing. A recovery run definition is probably something like it's a light, easy run, yeah? It's an even easier, easy run, yeah? And if you get that right, and if you run those easy and recovery runs slow enough, the purpose of those is so that you can go harder on interval day, harder on long run day, so that you can gain more super compensation, more improvement. And that's where you're going to get your improvement. That's where you're going to move towards your target time or your target goal race. It's that simple. But how fast should you be running each one of those runs? Now, obviously it depends on your goal, and it depends, more importantly, it depends on where you're at the moment. Because you can have the greatest goal in the world. I can plan in 12 months time to run a world record marathon, run under two hours for the marathon. Is it going to happen? It's got to be a smart target, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and I think it's tangible is the last one. But it's got to be smart, it's got to be realistic, and that depends on where you're at right now. So if I'm currently running a 3-hour marathon, what is it possible that I can achieve within a 6-month period, a 12-month period, or within the next 3 months in my build up to an ultra marathon? That's what you need to be looking at. And what I always say is aim high. Why? Because A, why not? And B, most people under aim. Their goals are too small, which means they end up, people like to stay safe. And so they'll end up hitting their goal, but the problem was initially the goal wasn't high enough. And if you're getting out there, if you're running, if you're training towards something, brilliant already, it's fantastic. But go for it, just go for it. And that's where you'll find that you grow more outside your comfort zone. We all know that, and we've seen every quote under the sun about it. But you'll begin to surprise yourself. And when you begin to surprise yourself, as long as that comes with discipline, you can really make some great movements and some great improvements over time. So, long story short, in terms of pacing, like if you look at your race pace as like the pace that you're going to be able to hold, whether it's 5k, 10k, half marathon, marathon, whatever it is you're trying to do, think about it instead of pace. Think about it in terms of effort. Now, if you can correlate that to heart rate, it's gonna, instead of you going off feel, which a lot of people like to say and I like to do, going off feel, it can be a little bit risky because sometimes you're feeling great, and that can often be the riskiest thing. If you're feeling too good, like especially if you get towards a race, you're getting really, really fit and you want to go faster, that's the time when discipline needs to kick in, because you don't want to waste your racing legs in training. You want to save that for the race. So if you can judge that off heart rate and you can start to feel, right, okay, I'm running a marathon, and for a marathon I'm fit enough that I can hold 170 beats for the entire marathon, and that will probably start out at 150 beats, gradually over the first 5-10k get to 170 beats, and then you'll be able to more or less hold that, and the average heart rate you'll be able to see on your Garmin Connect or Strava will look at 170 beats more or less, depending on temperature usually, depending on how much you're able to get in nutrition wise and hydration wise during the race. So if you take that as your race pace effort and you start to think in terms of effort rather than pace, because if you think about it, apart from biomechanics and getting your biomechanics, there's a lot of work. So there is a lot of work at race pace that you're going to do during your training schedule. But apart from the actual pace, it's all to do with effort. What effort can you sustain over the distance of the marathon, or over the distance of the 5K that you're about to do, or the 10K or the half marathon? That's the important part. So then if we look at intervals, if you look at a typical interval session, 10 times 5 minutes or 20 times 400, doesn't matter. Then you're able to judge what pace can I run these at and what pace can I hold throughout the entire interval session, 20 times 400 meters, 60 seconds rest in between. How can I pace this properly so that I'm going to be going faster than race pace, and this is the session where I'm going faster than race pace. But what I'm teaching my body to do is to gradually, over time, intervals, basically piecing together 20 times 400 meters, 8,000 meters, piecing together 8,000 meters, but a higher quality 8,000 meters, because you're able to go faster for each one of those meters than you would if it was just 8 kilometers straight out. So it's about pacing it, and it's about kind of putting more effort in than your race pace, because you're only running 400 meters at a time, and every 400 meters, whether that's on the track, ideally it's on tarmac if you're training for a road race, then you know you've got 60 seconds rest in between, and then it's about how can I rest and get ready for the next one. If it's 5 times 10 minutes or 10 times 5 minutes, of course you're going to go a little bit slower, but it's how can you pace that. And if you're running a marathon in 3 hours or 2 hours 30 or 4 hours, whatever you're doing, you know that each 10-minute interval or each 5-minute interval, you're able to run faster than you would in a race, because you know at the end of every repetition, you've got a 60-second rest where you can bring that heart rate down and go again. Now the important bit, the really important bit, is how fast you run your recovery runs and easy runs. Now, this is where most people go wrong, and the reason they go wrong is because everything within the schedule starts to look a bit grey. What do I mean by that? I mean that if the interval session and the long run are affected by you running too fast, putting too much effort into your recovery runs and your easy runs, then you're not able to put quality long runs together, and you're not able to go fast enough in your interval session. And both of those, as we said before, feed into each other really nicely. So the endurance and the stamina from the long run feeds into the interval session. So you're able to go faster for longer during the interval session. And the interval feeds into the long run, so you're able to go faster for the same effort. It really is that simple, yeah? And together over the weeks, the consistency over the weeks will bring you closer and closer to PB shape. So most people run too fast in recovery runs and easy runs because it seems so slow compared to their interval session. It seems so slow compared to the long run. But it shouldn't feel slow. It's a different type of running, and you need to get that into your head that it's a different type of running. So if you're going out there and you've just done an interval session the day before, or you've done an interval session and you've had a rest day, then you're about to go and do a recovery run, slow yourself down and get yourself into the mentality. The kit's laid out the night before, you're ready to go, but this is a different type of run. And before each run, think, what is the purpose of this run? Is the purpose to build speed? No, it's not an interval session. Is the purpose to build endurance? No, it's not a long run. The purpose of a recovery run is to make you recover faster and fuller by pumping blood around the legs, freshening up the legs, so that at the end of the run, you feel fresher than the start of the run, so that you're able to next day do an easy run, and then next day go hard again in a long run or an interval session. That simple. So if you think of your week like that, and if you think of your recovery runs like that, what is the purpose of the run? Again, for the easy session, monitor your heart rate. Look at your heart rate. For me, my heart rate for marathon is around about 170 beats. It's not too much difference for a 100k race on the flat, yeah? When you go especially when you start to go into undulating races. If you're going to go off pace, how are you ever going to be able to judge something that's off-road trail or undulating road? It's impossible to judge, but it's really possible to judge effort. And when you can judge effort, and when you can look at your heart rate and think, right, I'm going into the red here, or I'm going into a zone that I know I can only keep for a certain amount of time, then you never, what they would call bonk. You never bonk, you never run out of energy, because you always can stay within yourself, you would say, because not everything is always manageable. Really, really important to get that in, and to make use of it, because that slowing down on your recovery runs and easy runs is going to make you a better runner. And it feels counterintuitive, because you want to be using the fitness. You want, I feel great today, I feel my legs feel fresh already, and I only did an interval 2 days ago, but I want to go quick again. That's not going to get you faster, quicker. Like running fast very, very frequently is not going to get you quicker. It's about the patience and the consistency that comes with putting together a 3-month plan, putting together a 10-week specific plan in order to get you a PB. If you can get that right, then you'll know exactly how it feels to start to get fit. And getting into PB shape is all about peaking at the right time. Consistency.